Turi 2 TV, das Branchenfernsehen.
Utrecht in den Niederlanden. 300.000 Einwohner, wohl noch mehr Fahrräder und eine Geschäftsidee, die Verlage in der ganzen Welt bewegt. In diesem grauen Büroklotz sitzt Blendle, der Online-Kiosk für einzelne Artikel. Statt kompletter Zeitungen kaufen Nutzer hier einzelne Texte für einen Centbetrag. Gründer Marten Blankesteijn hat viele deutsche Verlage an Bord. Richtig erfolgreich ist Blendle aber erst in Holland.
Well, in general, the longer we are active in a country, the more they like us, because we have growth every single month. So the longer we are active, the bigger the revenue, and the more money is coming in, the more they like us. So in Germany, it's already getting interesting for some publishers, but in Holland, it's really pretty massive. So even sometimes hundreds of thousands of euros for quite small publishers. So they are very happy when we drop by.
Das Problem wie so häufig, viel reden, nix probieren. Der Unterschied zwischen den USA und Deutschland.
I think there are a couple of American publishers that are very willing to experiment with about everything. So they join Facebook Instant Articles, they join Flipboard, they join Apple News, for example. So every time there's an experiment, they want to be in to see how it works. So there's some American publishers are very easy, but there are also some that don't do anything. And at some point we even managed to get them on board, so that was the very good part. And in Germany, I think most publishers were more in between, so they don't want to join everything, but they're also willing to test if you have a good story.
Blendle würde am liebsten sämtliche Printmedien verfügbar machen, auch Lokalzeitungen, aber das dauert.
Yeah, this is really the hardest part. I mean, the part that I didn't expect when we started Blendle, because I thought, well, you agree with the newspaper that you can sell their articles, then they send you their articles and then you start selling them. But then we found out that a lot of feeds are not as sophisticated as an outsider might expect. So in a lot of cases, publishers can just send us a PDF and then we have to figure out a process to get that PDF into separate articles. And that's a whole new world. I can tell for days about that, but it's really really complicated, and we got kind of good in it. But it still takes time to figure out how the feed of a publisher works and how we can automate that so it gets imported into Blendle every single day.
An einem Punkt kommt Blendle flott mit Verlagen ins Gespräch, wenn es um die Technologie fürs Bezahlen im Netz geht.
And at some point, publishers came to us and said, well, you have this easy one-click payment system, and we also want to have a paywall, but ours is much more complicated. So can we work together somehow to make our payment process easier? Because every time things get easier, more people pay for it. That's simple logic. So then we started to make a beta for a couple of publishers, and it worked really well. So then we thought, yeah, we should just export our payment system to make it available to websites of publishers. And there seems to be a lot of interest in that.
Blendle zwischenschalten, also zwischen den Verlag und den Kunden. Warum sollte ein Verlag das tun?
The first advantage is that you don't have to do it on your own, because there are a lot of publishers who have maybe 3 or 4 people working on their paywall, which is already quite cost heavy. But because it's only 3 or 4 people, you can never make an extremely good paywall. And what we could do is, instead of having 10 publishers with 3 or 4 people, we can put 40 people working on one paywall for all those publishers. And of course, it gets much better, so much more conversion, much more subscribers if we would do it. And I think you can see that if you subscribe to Median, for example, where we already are the paywall, that takes about 23 seconds. And if you go to the average German newspaper or magazine and you try to subscribe there, then it takes more than 4 minutes. I read a tweet, I think a couple of weeks back, where a German said, Blendle is finally a paywall where you don't have to give your blood type before you can start paying. And I think that describes how German paywalls are at the moment. And we want to make that much easier and cheaper for publishers.
Blendle also auf dem Weg vom Online-Kiosk zur Paywall-Plattform. Was wird sich noch tun?
I think the most important change that we're going through is that we are not just focusing on articles anymore. And of course, we still sell articles, and we still like that very much. But there's also a group of people who is, after reading some articles, interested in getting a full subscription. And of course, publishers love to have more subscribers. So we want to help publishers by doing that, both on the Blendle platform. So we have a whole new funnel to get people into a subscription, and also via the button. So the button is not just the paying per article that people associate Blendle with, but it will also be selling subscriptions to the people who like that.
Am Ende, sagt Blankesteijn, sitzen alle Verlage im selben Boot und er wäre mit seiner 80-köpfigen Crew gern der Kapitän.
We travel all around the world and visit publishers because that's what the job is. And what we notice is that every publisher has the same problems. So whether you go to the New York Times or to a very small American newspaper or to a Dutch newspaper or a German newspaper, everybody has a couple of problems that are exactly the same. And what we see is that every single publisher is like investing a couple of 100,000 or a couple of millions a year solving that problem, but it never gets solved really well. And if you look at that from a global perspective, then you think, why don't they invest all that money together into one great solution? So it's actually good and probably much cheaper than doing everything on your own. And that's a bit how you could look at Blendle. If we can solve those big problems by doing it once very well for a lot of publishers, then it's in the end better for everybody.